Thank you for joining me today. Wow, you know what? We've just lived through an incredible week. So many stories that are making the news are right out of the Bible. Matter of fact, it's one of those weeks where you wonder how do people make it without the Bible? And so we want to kind of blend this in with the series that we're doing, because remember, we're talking about the aspect of what's ahead. In other words, where we're living right now. Next, what's up? That's the rapture of the church. We're going to be back to that. We're going to spend some quality time looking at that. We've touched on it several times, but we want to look at more details from the scriptures. And then we want to spend a lot of time today on what's next, what's new, what's taking place. And I'm going to tell you that there's so many stories that I just want to say, okay, let's just take a quick look at this week in Bible Prophecy and see the stories that have been fulfilled and are making the news. You're going to enjoy this. You're going to have a lot of information to share with friends, and I hope it'll make you excited about the Lord's coming. Well, one of the things that's taking place is the fact that the Bible speaks of the prophet Daniel. And remember that God revealed the future to Daniel in some very unique ways. And by the time we're done, you're going to see how important that revelation to Daniel was. Even though it's 2,600 years ago, it's very up to date. Remember in Daniel chapter 2, we saw that God gave to Nebuchadnezzar the image depicting every world kingdom. And if we start according to Revelation chapter 17, Assyria, Egypt, and then the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, interpreted by God 3 times in the book of Daniel. And then we saw that the Bible speaks in Revelation 17, Daniel chapter 2, that when the world's divided into 10 regions, that's a time when God is going to come to set up his kingdom. That's exactly what took place with the United Nations, dividing the world into 10 regions. Or in Daniel chapter 9, it speaks of how that in the midpoint of the tribulation, the Antichrist is going to stop the sacrifice. But if he's going to stop it in the middle of the tribulation, well, it's got to start. And the news this week shows you how close they are to starting sacrifices again. You'll be surprised how that ties in with the Hamas war. And then we go to the book of Daniel, chapter 12. He speaks of a time of trouble, I think the tribulation, such as there was never before for the nation of Israel and for the world. And then he goes on to give some incredible signs, not just the trouble times, but as well the travel times, and as well the technology times, all appropriate for today. Well, let's begin with this. What are the events of the week? And I want to begin with the story of the Red Heifer. Wow, what a story. Because you see, on the 100th day of the war, the leader of Hamas, one of the few that are left, he gave a speech, and he said that they had to speed up the attack on Israel to October the 7th because there was so much interest in Israel over this red heifer to cremate it so they could begin sacrifices on the Temple Mount. And he goes on to say, wow, that's why we had to speed up the war. That's why it came all of a sudden. Isn't that incredible? Because we've quoted on this show before that even the Islamic people believe that whoever has the ashes will control the world. And so now you see the importance of the red heifer. If you're not sure about the red heifer, go to our website. We've got some great downloads, other information on it. But for those of you that have been following us all along, wow, what a story. That took place just this week. And then here's another one that I think is incredible. It has to do with facial recognition. It has to do with AI. It has to do with what's taking place in terms of, I'm going to say, revolutionizing the whole AI concept of not just its use, but its danger, and using facial recognition. Watch this little news clip from the week.
Your kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that? That little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents.
Well, you see how they've made a practical application of AI in facial recognition? Do you understand how easy it would be now for an assassin to take anybody out? Because all of us have a facial profile. Unbelievable. Unbelievable the technology and how it's being used, not always for good, but for control, for security. Isn't it amazing that we seem to be more the target of this than people that are perpetrating and breaking laws? Well, that's one of the stories this week. We'll do more on that. But here's another story that took place this week. In Davos, wow, you know, the elite. Matter of fact, they call themselves the elite. They go there every year. And they have sessions for the World Economic Forum. They talk about climate change. As they ride their fancy planes into Davos, I want you to just see the type of people that go there and really what's their purpose. Here's the clip.
They don't bother with going on the turny, car-sick Swiss Alps roads. They fly private jets to this private airstrip about an hour and a half, 15 minutes away from Davos. And then many of them take a helicopter from here for that last leg of the journey. God forbid they share the highway with the peasants. There's planes coming and going literally every 10 minutes. I just heard the sound of a jet behind me. It's fascinating. One of the things about planes that I didn't know is that you can look up their number on the tail, search out the details, for example, what kind of aircraft it is and who owns it. And there's even an app where you can track jets as they come and go. This is a fairly small airstrip. It's a private airstrip. I think it's used for commercial business. There's some industry in the area and for people flying in to go skiing in the Alps. But this 1 week of the World Economic Forum is the busiest week by far for this little airstrip. And you see massive jets that you wouldn't normally see. It's so busy. It's such an important part of their business that the website of the airport has its own special menu bar just for the World Economic Forum. You could read it yourself. They make hundreds of thousands of dollars from the fees of these planes landing and getting fueled and staying in hangars. But like I say, this is a fairly small airfield. There's not enough room. So the jets sometimes fly elsewhere to park elsewhere. We followed one plane that took off from London, landed here. It was an enormous plane, a Bombardier 6500. I Googled it. Those things retail for about $50 million US, and they cost tens of thousands of dollars per hour to fly with that high carbon jet fuel. We watched that aircraft land, and I was ready for a huge entourage to get off the plane. There were only 3 people on the plane.
Well, that's pretty efficient. 3 people on a jet. And these are the people that are telling us how to live. Davos. Wow. You know something? There's some real contradictions that take place. And maybe this is to show you one of them. Watch this little video clip of what they're doing at the World Economic Forum and at Davos.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
I can guarantee you that the footprint of anyone flying to Davos is going to have a bigger footprint than any one of us. Can you imagine that high efficiency fuel, that kerosene type fuel that they use for those jets? Can you imagine flying there? Some of them land one place, take a helicopter to another, then make it to the conference. It's a hypocrite. That's exactly what it is. But we're not done with that conference. Oh, all kinds of things are going on there. I would look at this one because you see they're talking about how they can do a patch. And at this important conference, they're even talking about how that we all need to sign up for our health rights to be done internationally. This just gives you a little preview of it. Again, we'll be back to visit these, but this is all taking place this week.
Let's talk about vaccines, because through the pandemic, the work that you did with Serum, etc., helped bridge some of the shortages that existed, at least for countries like ours in India. But as we now look at vaccine manufacturing coming up in different parts of the world, how do you see this playing out, this vaccine supply chain diversification, and what its impact could be?
Well, India is the volume leader by far with vaccines, starting with Serum, but also people like BioE, Bharat. And it's fantastic how they responded during the pandemic, worked with the government, made a lot of vaccines. The Gates Foundation provided some support as well. We make sure that for all these vaccines, that there's enough capacity, that there's competition so the prices keep going down. And we will have new vaccines. We'll have a TB vaccine, malaria vaccine, HIV vaccine, and even the things like COVID vaccines. We need to make them have longer duration, more coverage, and we're going to change, instead of using a needle, to use a little patch. So the pandemic really highlighted that we've been underinvested in those innovations, and our partners in India are part of how we're going to get these breakthrough products done.
Well, I'm sure they're working on some breakthroughs, but you know what? In addition to all these so-called breakthroughs, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't trust them, because these are the very people that talk about how that we need to reduce the population. Some of them say 2 billion people, some say 6 billion people. Are they really making a breakthrough in health? Are they having a breakthrough in how to control world population? And you see, signing up under the World Health Organization, sponsors by these wealthy people, the elite, the Davos crowd, isn't it interesting that other people like myself don't exactly trust them? Let me show you a little clip, just a couple-minute clip. We're going to investigate this further as well, but you'll hear why some of us, and probably many of you, are suspicious of what they're really doing in these clinics.
You're saying that an international health organization could just end the First Amendment in the United States?
Yes, and in fact, as much as this sounds, I know that it sounds preposterous, but
it does not sound preposterous.
The ability to do it is currently under discussion at the international level. And it's almost impossible to exaggerate how troubling what is being discussed is. In fact, I think it is fair to say that we are in the middle of a coup, that we are actually facing the elimination of our national and our personal sovereignty, and that is the purpose of what is being constructed, that it has been written in such a way that your eyes are supposed to glaze over.
That's right.
As you attempt to sort out what is under discussion. And if you do that, then come May of this year, your nation is almost certain to sign on to an agreement that in some utterly vaguely described future circumstance, a public health emergency, which the Director General of the World Health Organization has total liberty to define in any way that he sees fit. In other words, nothing prevents climate change from being declared a public health emergency that would trigger the provisions of these modifications. And in the case that some emergency or some pretense of an emergency shows up, the provisions that would kick in are beyond jaw-dropping.
He's right, beyond jaw-dropping. You see how the stage is being set? All this took place in these last couple of weeks as we head into this. What an important time. First of all, I want you to know that, you know what, among the things that happens at these things, like at the World Economic Forum, they even say that with the technology we have, we may not need to do elections. Yeah, with AI, we soon will be able to predict what people want. We're in the digital stage now, the analytical stage, but we're soon going to be in the predictive stage where they can even determine the result of an election without us voting. How nice of them to make the choice for us. Watch this important clip.
The technology now is, and digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore, because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
Not only do I disagree with his conclusion, I don't want them making a choice for me, but I think it's strange, weird would be a kind way to describe it. Even what goes on at some of these conferences, watch this little demonstration that was part of this year's Davos conference.
Antuma chaya no kamahu anuri, no kamai, no kawaka, na anuri, no yuyua, na wahon shina vupanke tu shina shavawaki, shina mukikirani, tsai shavakirani, tsai mukikirani. Awama wanana, no mahono why sharai.
Oh boy, they enjoy that, huh? Well, I had a cold one time that was that bad, but I didn't go around coughing on people. I tried to cough in my elbow. They lean forward to get this blessing or this wind or this curse or this cough. Strange things go on there, but even stranger are the doctrines they have. And on top of all this, guess what? This week, here's another headline. 10 Middle East conflicts are converging into one big war. Have you thought about it this way? This past week, matter of fact, January the 18th, we had Pakistan that bombed Iran. We had Jordan that bombed Syria. We had the U.S. that bombed Yemen. We had Israel that bombed Gaza. We had Lebanon that bombed Israel. And the Ukraine and Russia traded bombs back and forth. Unbelievable. Folks, we're on the brink of a war, a world war, just like the Bible said. So with all these things going on, isn't it something that we come to the book of Daniel? 2,600 years ago, the book of Daniel said this, at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as there never was from the time there was a nation of Israel, even till now. I think that troubled time has to be the tribulation. And it goes on to say, okay, when is that going to take place? And when it takes place, I'm going to back to that slide again. When it takes place, it says this, even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro. I call that travel. Think about the travel. We just saw the people at Davos. Wow, they travel miles and miles to get there. All of us travel. And then knowledge shall be increased. Technology will expand. I like this verse because there's a story about Voltaire. He's my favorite atheist. And a story about a man by the name of Sir Isaac Newton, a great engineer, physicist, astronomer, mathematician. He was a believer in Jesus Christ. And he said that I believe someday, based on the book of Daniel, chapter 12, that people are going to take the laws that I have, the basic laws, the 3 laws of thermodynamics, the 3 laws of engineering, and the application of that's going to make it so people can travel at the rate of 20 or 40 miles an hour. Voltaire, he laughed. He said, you see what a fool Christianity makes of an otherwise brilliant man like Sir Isaac Newton? Everyone knows if you traveled 20 or 30 or 40 miles an hour, your heart would stop and you'd suffocate. Well, we laugh at it now because kids go 40 miles an hour on their bike and their mopeds. But can you imagine the fact that we travel hundreds of miles an hour in our cars, especially the teenagers? We've traveled 300 or 400 or 500 miles an hour in a normal airplane ride. Some of us have traveled at the rate of almost 1,000 miles an hour in airplane rides. The astronauts recently traveled at the rate of 18,000 miles an hour, and they did not suffocate, and their heart did not stop. The application of technology. Well, I believe that Sir Isaac Newton had a real insight as he read the book of Daniel. But please mark carefully that the last chapter of this incredible book on prophecy, God reveals to Daniel the time of trouble, the tribulation, the time of travel, the age we're living in right now, and the time of technology. There's been some incredible breakthroughs that are coming in technology. We're on the brink of them right now. It's called quantum engineering, quantum computing. We're going to look at several clips. I'm excited about this because my first job out of college was at IBM's research lab working on the heat transfer of components of big computers, machines. I looked at the silicon wafers. You'll see a sample of them here. At that time, we were just putting a few thousand transistors and so on. It's gone way beyond that. It hasn't doubled. It's gone way, it's a quantum step. And we're watching this take place. It's going to change life. It's going to change technology. And by the time you're done, you're going to see how that whoever has this tool is indeed, along with AI, this tool and AI, they're going to become the chief economic component of the world, and they will have the driver's seat in terms of controlling all humanity and all technology. Watch as we begin our story on quantum engineering.
Artificial intelligence is the magic of the moment, but this is a story about what's next, something incomprehensible. Tomorrow, IBM will announce an advance in an entirely new kind of computing, one that may solve problems in minutes that would take today's supercomputers millions of years. That's the difference in quantum computing, a technology being developed at IBM, Google, and others. It's named for quantum physics, which describes the forces of the subatomic realm. The science is deep, and we can't scratch the surface, but we hope to explain enough so that you won't be blindsided by a breakthrough that could transform civilization. The quantum computer pushes the limits of knowledge, new science, new engineering, all leading to this processor that computes with the atomic forces that created the universe.
I think this moment, it feels to us like the pioneers on the 1940s and 50s that were building the first digital computers.
Dario Gil is something of a quantum crusader. Spanish-born with a PhD in electrical engineering, Gil is head of research at IBM.
How much faster is this than, say, the world's best supercomputer today?
We are now in a stage where we can do certain calculations with these systems that would take the biggest supercomputers in the world to be able to do some similar calculation. But the beauty of it is that we see that we're going to continue to expand that capability such that not even 1 million or 1 billion of those supercomputers connected together could do the calculations of these future machines. So we've come a long way. And the most exciting part is that we have a roadmap and a journey right now where that is going to continue to increase at a rate that is going to be shocking.
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
So the world is not prepared for it. But do you hear the numbers he uses? At first they said if you had 1 million computers, they couldn't solve the problems that this is going to solve in an instant of time. Or if you hooked up a million computers, one time they said for working for 1,000 years together, they couldn't solve them. This is a step forward. It's a quantum leap forward. Daniel said technology would expand in such an incredible way. We used to tell young graduates when they got out of school that, you know what, technology is doubling every 2 years. So if you don't continue to learn, if you don't continue to refresh yourself, after you get out of college in 2 years, you're halfway out of date. 2 more years, you're only 25% efficient. This is going to change all of that. We're on the brink of something really big, something that fulfills the book of Daniel. Is going to give great control to whoever controls and masters this technology. Here's our next clip.
We've come a long way. And the most exciting part is that we have a roadmap and a journey right now where that is going to continue to increase at a rate that is going to be shocking.
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
To understand the change, go back to 1947 and the invention of a switch called a transistor.
The transistor, a new name.
Computers have processed information on transistors ever since, getting faster as more transistors were squeezed onto a chip, billions of them today. But it takes that many, because each transistor holds information in only two states. It's either on or it's off, like a coin, heads or tails. Quantum abandons transistors and encodes information on electrons that behave like this coin we created with animation. Electrons behave in a way so that they are heads and tails and everything in between. You've gone from handling one bit of information at a time on a transistor to exponentially more data.
You can see that there is fantastic amount of information stored when you can look at all possible angles, not just up or down.
Physicist Michio Kaku of the City University of New York already calls today's computers classical. He uses a maze to explain quantum's difference.
Let's look at a classical computer calculating how a mouse navigates a maze. It is painful. One by one, it has to map every single left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn before it finds the goal. Now, a quantum computer scans all possible routes simultaneously. This is amazing. How many turns are there? Hundreds of possible turns, right? Quantum computers do it all at once. We're looking at a race between China, between IBM, Google, Microsoft, Honeywell. All the big boys are in this race to create a workable, operationally efficient quantum computer, because the nation or company that does this will rule the world economy.
Did you hear a statement? Whoever controls this is going to rule the world economy. And dare I say it's going to rule in every other way, because technology is that important. Technology is going to be the thing that's going to run AI. Well, this is so fascinating. Let's go to our next clip. But I think you see why I think this is a fulfillment of Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. Technology will expand.
But a reliable, general-purpose quantum computer is a tough climb yet. Maybe that's why this wall is in the lobby of Google's quantum lab in California. Here, we got an inside look, starting with a microscope's view of what replaces the transistor.
This right here is 1 qubit, and this is another qubit. This is a 5-qubit chain.
Those crosses at the bottom are qubits, short for quantum bits. They hold the electrons and act like artificial atoms. Unlike transistors, each additional qubit doubles the computer's power. It's exponential. So while 20 transistors are 20 times more powerful than one, 20 qubits are 1,000,000 times more powerful than one.
So this gets positioned right here on the fridge.
Karina Chow, Chief Operating Officer of Google's lab, showed us the processor that holds the qubits. Much of that above chills the qubits to what physicists call near absolute zero.
Near absolute zero, I understand, is about 460 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. So that's about as cold as anything can get.
Yes, almost as cold as possible.
That temperature inside a sealed computer is one of the coldest places in the universe. The deep freeze eliminates electrical resistance and isolates the qubits from outside vibrations so they can be controlled with an electromagnetic field. The qubits must vibrate in unison, but that's a tough trick called coherence.
Once you've achieved coherence of the qubits, how easy is that to maintain?
It's really hard. Coherence is very challenging.
Coherence is fleeting. In all similar machines, coherence breaks down constantly, creating errors.
We're making about 1 error in every 100 or so steps. Ultimately, we think we're going to need about 1 error in every million or so steps. That would probably be identified as one of the biggest barriers.
Yeah, there's barriers, but you know what? They're optimistic about solving them. Again, I want to keep going because there's so much information on this, and they do it in such a simple way to understand. Technology is expanding.
Are the challenges facing German-American scientist Hartmut Neven, who founded Google's lab and its casual style in 2012.
Can the problems that are in the way of quantum computing be solved?
I should confess my subtitle here is Chief Optimist. So after having said this, I would say at this point, we don't need any more fundamental breakthroughs. We need little improvements here and there. We have all the pieces together. We just need to integrate them well to build larger and larger systems.
And you think that all of this will be integrated into a system in what period of time?
Yeah, we often say we want to do it by the end of the decade so that we can use this Kennedy quote and get it done by the end of the decade.
The end of this decade?
Yes.
5 or 6 years?
Yes.
Isn't it amazing how many things are scheduled for 2030? Wow. You know something? I think the Lord's coming soon. I watch what's taking place at Davos. I watch what's taking place at the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization. I see what's taking place in technology. We're on the brink of Jesus coming. The Bible said that there would be wars, rumors of wars. There would be conditions of health. All these things, and they said that Israel would become a focal point. That's taking place. We're living in the time the Bible's being fulfilled. Here's our next clip.
China named quantum a top national priority, and the U.S. government is spending nearly $1 billion a year on research. The first change comes next year, when the U.S. publishes new standards for encryption, because quantum is expected one day to break the codes that lock everything from national secrets to credit cards. Tomorrow, IBM will unveil its Quantum System 2 with 3 times the qubits as the machine you saw in Cleveland. This past August, we saw System 2 under construction.
It's a machine unlike anything we've ever built.
And this is it?
This is it.
IBM's Dario Gil told us System 2 has the room to expand to thousands of qubits.
Wow. I'm excited about the technology, but I'm also excited because I think it's fulfilling God's word.
You know, when I look at the night sky, I see stars, I look at the flowers, the trees, I realize that it's all quantum. The splendor of the universe itself, the language of the universe is the language of the quantum.
Learning that language may bring more than inconceivable speed. Reverse engineering nature's computer could be a window on creation itself.
Yes, I think it will be a window on creation itself. You see, that's how wonderful, that's how powerful my God is. Technology can only try to catch up to God. Heaven's going to be more spectacular, and the technology of heaven's going to be incredible. But isn't it amazing that the Bible would say, look for a time in the end where there's going to be trouble. When travel's increasing, technology will abound. Folks, we're here. Every indicator that we're living in the last days is upon us. And so when I look at these things, I'm excited because you see, the Bible said that just prior to the rapture of the church, we would see incredible things taking place. These are not signs for the church. These are signs for the tribulation. We're watching those take place. The Bible talks about how that there will be a time of trouble on the earth, that if it lasted more than 7 years, no flesh would be spared. We're watching the hallmarks of that. We're seeing it in every area of our life. It speaks about a time when the Antichrist will come and he'll gain control. In order to gain control, he needs the technologies, the AIs, the quantum engineering that we have. He talked about a time when health, when the destruction of huge populations, 1/4 of the world's population will be destroyed in one plague. Isn't this sound familiar with what we've been looking at? I really think we're on the brink of the tribulation coming. And before that can happen, thank God for the rapture of the church. Christ will come in the clouds, and those that know him will be received up into heaven. So as we look at these things, here's what I say. What can we do? Well, we can watch and pray. Our job is to be alert. I think of the people of Noah's day. They should have been alert. They should have seen that boat completed. They should have heard the message of warning from Noah. And my friend, it's important for us to watch and pray. I say that because you know what? There are people around us who would respond to the gospel if we showed them these indicators of the tribulation time. And if we showed them the solution that Christ came. He had no sin, but I had sin. You have sin. We all have sin. And on the cross, Jesus died for the sins of the world. You see, he took my sin. He took your sin. He shed his blood. He died. He was buried. He rose again. He was the substitute for me. He was the sacrificial lamb. Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. It was Jesus. And now it's up to you to say, God, I see what you're trying to tell the earth. I see how you're fulfilling your word exactly. Even the Old Testament is being fulfilled today before our eyes. And I accept now your plan of salvation, which is Jesus Christ. I see that he died for me. Lord Jesus, I take you as my personal Savior. My friend, would you receive him today? And then with me, would you watch and pray as we see all these things taking place? Because I want to end our program today with the same thing that I always say. Are you ready? Are you ready if Jesus comes today? What about your family? What about your friends? What a time to share with him the good news of Jesus Christ. My friend, it's good news. It's good news because with all these things coming, the best news is that God's plan included salvation, and it's a gift. It's free, but you have to receive Christ as your Savior. Would you do that now? Thank you for joining me. God bless you. Continue to watch and pray as we wait for the Lord's soon return.